Kicking off the list at number 10, particle accelerator. We love science experiments, baking soda and vinegar, a DIY volcano, boom, let's make a mess. But what if we flew too close to the sun? What if one experiment could, I don't know, hypothetically swallow our known universe? Sounds fun, let's do it. Sir Martin Rees, Britain's royal astronomer, shines some light on a dark possibility in his book, On the Future. The particle accelerator is this massive machine that does exactly that. It smashes these charged particles together at a high speed, all in the name of science. Now we're trying to further understand condensed matter physics, and while it sure sounds impressive, what if it goes south? What if somebody fucks up? Well, if that happens, it could possibly destroy our known universe. Apparently, these particles smashing together could create this strange matter that shrinks Earth down to 300 feet in diameter. So we'd be tiny or dead. Either way, we'd be like, oh shit. Or it creates a black hole. That would suck away our entire existence. Thanks, Martin. Now we'll be able to sleep because I'm thinking of particle colliders. Freddy Krueger and also particle colliders. I'm like, this holiday season sucks. Can't sleep. Number 9, black holes. Christopher Nolan can't even save us from this one. There are 3 types of black holes. We got stellar, supermassive, and intermediate mass. And they can all kill us easily if they wanted to. Black holes are formed when a star dies. And in turn, we get the strongest Dyson vacuum ever. It sucks in light, so of course we wouldn't make it. There's no chance. There's about 10 million black holes in the Milky Way right now. And the closest one is about 1,500 light years away. So we're looking good for now. We actually got a photo of a black hole not too long ago. It's beautiful. We're learning more and more every year. And one of the scariest facts that I heard was that black holes will be the last thing in the known universe. And these things orbit as well. They don't just sit in the same spot. Like everything else in the galaxy, black holes are also moving around, which means one will eventually get close. Do you think they would tell us if a black hole was about to swallow us? I sure hope not. I mean, no spoilers, come on. I'm only on season 27 of my life. Keep it real. Number 8, solar flares. Solar flares just sound scary, you know? Our star heats up, we literally revolve around it, and it blesses us with life and tan lines and all the good stuff, but sometimes she acts up. Sometimes she creates these powerful magnetic fields that create sunspots larger than our planet. This then creates a stream of radiation. It's called solar wind. Now normally this is a beautiful event. The northern lights happen because of Earth's magnetic field reacting to this radiation. But too much of a good thing can be disastrous. This month even, on October 9th, a large solar flare was spotted, and 3 days later, it hit. The geomagnetic storm reached category G2, which out of 5 is still quite strong. The biggest solar event was actually back in 1859. It's called the Carrington event. It was strong enough to disrupt telegraph communications, even shocking some telegraph operators. Imagine that, if this happens again and it's stronger, we're looking at power outages on a massive scale. You'd be playing VR and then all of a sudden your eyes are like, poof, and just explode. Lovely, immersive. 10 out of 10. Number 7, moving stars. We look at the pyramids of Egypt in awe for many reasons, but as far as placement goes, these 3 pyramids align with the stars of Orion's belt. But what happens when these stars, like everything else in our known universe, moves? The pyramids won't align with stars forever. They will wander, but which direction will these stars go? That's the question here. Well, right now our sun is traveling through the Milky Way. It's carrying us along. We're in this moderately chill space bubble right now, but when we leave this region, say in, I don't know, 50,000 years, we have a great chance of bumping into one of these wandering stars. Do you think our climate is changing now? Well, you better learn how to be immortal and hang out for 50,000 years. Be a vampire and you'll see what a comet looks like up close. It's very cold and hot at the same time. We're not gonna survive. We have like 20 years left, realistically. Number 6, artificial intelligence. Okay, this one sounds silly, but we're actually quite close to getting Ultron in real life. God help us. We have robots that do parkour now. Like you can push these things, they would still continue to silly walk. Have you seen those videos where they get pushed and they're like, bleep, and they keep going? That's crazy. Now imagine if Siri decided to go rogue one day and then take over the body of one of the Boston Dynamic robots. We're f***ed. It's game over. That's it. I've seen iRobot. I don't want any part of this. No thank you. According to CB Insights, where they asked 52 experts, 52, so specific, they all agreed that AI will eventually be our downfall, and by that time, it's too late. I'm sweating reading that. What? The late Stephen Hawking said AI would be impossible to control. Elon Musk has been reinforcing how crucial it is to regulate AI. We can't regulate technology that we can't predict. That's the main thing here. Even Vladimir Putin says AI will have a profound impact on global politics. And are we really going to disagree with Vladimir Putin? No, we're not. Next. Number 5, asteroid impact. Number 5, asteroid impact. Of course, one of our leading theories as to how humans can all of a sudden go extinct is an asteroid. We've seen movies. These suckers have caused large-scale extinction events before us. Every time there's a meteor shower, people think it's beautiful, when in reality it's like sitting near first and third base at a baseball game. It's flying at you non-stop, like we're way too close. Every meteor shower, I'm just like, If one of these days an asteroid got too close, it would pretty much mean the end of humanity, regardless of where it hits on Earth. In fact, an asteroid named Apophis is set to slam into us in 100 years or so. Now, we originally thought that it would hit in 2029, but now we can add 100 years on top of that. It's a big orbit. So we're okay for now. For your grandkids though, heads up Whoville, good luck. Number 4, global warming. Okay, this one's on us, folks. Or at least a little bit. We're for sure to blame in some capacity. Now I'm trying to fight it. Around 90% of scientists say that humans are to blame for global warming, especially people who vape. That's what they said. I read it myself. I'm not making that up. According to climate.gov, we're cooking our planet with heat-trapping gases. Greenhouse gases in the atmosphere equals heat. Our global average temperature has gone up 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit since the late 90s. Carbon dioxide, methane, ozone, nitrous, and numerous chlorofluorocarbons, which is fun to say. Chlorofluorocarbons, nice. More like borofluorocarbons. Billy Madison reference. Stop littering. Next. Number 3, Yellowstone National Park. Nothing like a big old volcano to shake up your day. The supervolcano rumbling under Yellowstone National Park could wipe out millions if it decided to go off one day. It's exploded 3 times in the past. 2 million years ago, pop. 1.3 million years ago, pop, and then 664,000 years ago, boom. The next one, well, it could happen as soon as you click like and subscribe. How scary is that? Back in 2014, a team of researchers laid out what an erupting Yellowstone could actually look like in real life, and it's terrifying. It's massive. Entire states would be gone. Poof. Hot magma would then rain down as far as San Francisco, and on top of all that chaos, volcanic ash would cover most of our sunlight. It would be a dark and cold world for a little while. They of course had a Yellowstone scene in the movie 2012, and while sure, it's cinematic, I guess, it would be a lot louder and way faster. You can't check your rearview mirrors while Yellowstone is blasting off. I'm sorry folks, you just can't do this. Number 2, expanding sun. Our sun isn't strong enough to create a black hole after its death, which is a nice thought after hearing about black holes, sucking at light and your hopes and dreams. This is good news. But we do know that our sun will eventually die, and it's set to happen in about, drumroll, 7 billion years, so plenty of time to get that tan at the water park. We're still looking alright. It'll eventually become a white dwarf though, just floating in the cosmos. Now we won't get to see this of course because we'll be long gone, but if anybody is still hanging out by then, just still kicking it, still healing around, they'll unfortunately witness the sun get larger and cooler. It's predicted that it'll suck in Venus and Mercury, but as for Earth, well, solar winds generated would hypothetically be strong enough to slow Earth down. So we wouldn't get sucked into the sun, we would instead face a slow, hot death. And you thought it was hot outside now. Well, hang out for a bit. Well, it's pretty bad, but it'll get worse. And finally, number 1, nuclear weapons. In 1938, history changed forever when German nuclear physicist Otto Hahn Fritz Strassmann and Lise Meitner discovered nuclear fission in a lab in Berlin. They discovered that an atom splitting into lighter atoms caused a powerful blast. This was groundbreaking. Humans discovered a new way to power technology, but at the same time, they opened the door for nuclear horrors. Atomic bombs. On July 16, 1945, the Trinity test was conducted. The first atomic bomb was detonated in a New Mexico desert. It was deemed a success, with mushroom clouds reaching up to 40,000 feet high. This test changed history forever. Roughly 110,000 lives were later lost at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and many believe that nuclear warfare will truly be the end of humanity. The pure impact alone is one thing, but nuclear winters, where clouds of dust and black smoke just block out the sun for days at a time, could obviously have lasting effects. For example, if there was an all-out nuclear war between Russia and the United States, officials predict that temperatures would drop 8 degrees for 5 or 6 years, so we wouldn't even be able to grow food at that time. It would be absolute chaos. Stop bombing each other. Kicking off the list at number 10, robots. Are robots taking over? Is this a real thing we have to worry about? Well, according to Hans Moravec, founder of the robotics department of Carnegie Mellon University, yeah. He says yes, 100%. He predicts that by 2040, robots will not only be on par with human intelligence, but also human consciousness. That's lovely. I can't wait to come home from work one day and have my Dyson vacuum just vent for about an hour. That's great, can't wait. My Dyson, we get it. He predicts that robots will overtake us as the dominant species, but he also thinks that robots will love humans at the same time. That's gross. I don't know how I feel about that. I'd rather a robot hate me than love me. That's almost worse. I don't know. It's like, did you have a good day today? I'm like, stop, get away from me. Dyson. Hans says, consider the human form. It clearly isn't designed to be a scientist. Your mental capacity is extremely limited. You have to undergo all kinds of unnatural training just to get your brain even half suited for this kind of work. And for that reason, it's hard work. You live just long enough to start figuring things out before your brain starts deteriorating, and then you die. Isn't that lovely? I wanted to start this list off with something nice and horrible. But wouldn't it be great if you could enhance your abilities via artificial intelligence and extend your lifespan and improve on the human condition? No, I say no. What do you guys think of that? Sound off in the comments. I'm gonna go through them because this shit terrifies me. Anything with robots getting smarter than us, that's worse than AI. They have bodies. Number 9, pole reversal. This one, I'm not gonna lie, is also quite spooky. Every 100,000 years, give or take, Earth's magnetic field fades away until it's practically non-existent. And then boom, it starts to come back, but with the poles being flipped. North and South did the old flipperoonie. The last time this happened was about 780,000 years ago. That's the concerning part. In the past century alone, Earth's magnetic field has dropped 5%. So it may be upon us, folks. It could be happening tomorrow. This is a big deal for humans. If the poles were flipped while we were still alive, we would see decades of blackouts. Radiation from space would now hit Earth, thanks to the lack of Earth's magnetic field pushing back. Animals would literally get lost. Birds wouldn't have any idea where to go, nor would sea turtles or whales. These animals rely on that magnetic field. Worst part of all this, space radiation would make parts of Earth uninhabitable. No more grad trips to Dominican. Sorry, Blake. Number 8, simulation terminated. Perhaps one of my favorite theories has to be that we're all in a simulation. I'm not even real. I'm just in your screen right now. I'm fake. I'm not a real person. With Mark Zuckerberg creating this new metaverse, that theory is now only getting stronger. The chances that we're in a simulation, no joke, is 50-50, according to scientists. Elon Musk was asked about living in a simulation at a conference years back, and I've thought about something he said since. Apparently he's been talking about simulation living for a while. Yeah, the guy who launched a car into space also believes we're in a simulation. Nice, hit that thumbs up. Are we real? I don't know. Does it matter? I don't know. He mentioned how video games are getting better and better, and eventually we won't be able to distinguish games from reality. Like VR and stuff, that's crazy. I play Super Hot and I'm sweating. My body's literally sweating right now. The podcast Star Talk featuring Neil deGrasse Tyson, who of course touched base on this theory, he thinks that if we were virtual humans in an intergalactic game cube, that reality would render around us as we moved around, like in video games. You enter a room, then it loads. He also believes that might explain why we can't travel faster than the speed of light, so we couldn't get out of this solar system. He joked about the programmer putting that limit in. Yeah, funny joke, Neil. Are we in a simulation though, Neil? What's up? Number 7, cool down. Sometimes I forget that there's a massive ball of lava at the center of our planet. The core is obviously quite crucial to the planet's survival, but what happens when it starts to cool down like other stars? The Earth's magnetic field is created by the molten iron at the center of the world's core, so this one might have already begun. They kind of go hand in hand. The Earth's core is already hotter than the sun, so scientists predict that it'll take a little bit longer until that cools down, which is a good sign for us. The sun has about 5 billion years left, while the core of the Earth has 90 billion years. So we've got time, but future generations are, don't tell them. Number 6, out of orbit. The amount of rogue planets that are out there might just exceed the amount of stars in the Milky Way. That's terrifying. Rogue planets happen when a planet gets swung out of orbit. Now this could mean a few things for us here on Earth. If a rogue planet were to make an appearance, even if it didn't come close to Earth, changing the orbit of any planet in our solar system would inevitably end us all. Even a tiny degree, it would just be like, and then we'd fly away. If it were big enough, one of these rogue planets could straight up knock ours out of the way, like some sort of cosmic game of marbles. Or perhaps Earth could have its orbit thrown off even in the slightest bit, and we'd either freeze to death or melt. Either way, it would be a slow, very painful process. Number 5, earthquakes. Of course, earthquakes are on this list, but for this video, I'm specifically referencing a potential earthquake that could come back with a vengeance in Chile. Sorry if you're living in Chile, heads up. Back in 2010, an earthquake hit there and it had a magnitude of 8.8. It was triggered by the collisions of the Pacific Plate and the Nazca Plate. That one that already hit, it was bad. It triggered landslides, blackouts, and of course, a massive tsunami followed. Scientists believe now that this earthquake only released 1/3 of that built up tension in those plates. So any day now, another could hit and it could be even bigger. On November 2nd, recently actually, a 5.7 earthquake did hit Chile. So perhaps it's already begun. Stay safe. Number 4, gamma burst. Look out, Bruce Banner. We've got some gamma. When we look at extinction level events like, say, a meteor hitting the planet, we can bounce back from that. Evidently, we can come back from that, right? Sure, we lost some dinosaurs along the way, but millions of years later, we're wearing jeans, we're wearing jorts, we're popping, it's great. But when it comes to gamma rays, planets can't really come back from that. If a gamma ray happened at any time in our past, be it millions of years ago, like meteors, we'd still be screwed even this long after. Gamma rays happen when stars explode in distant galaxies. Light shoots out, radio waves shoots out, there's neutrinos, and of course, gamma rays. They're created when powerful magnetized objects collide, like neutron stars and black holes. Now, it's far away, it's very far away, but still it's so bright and powerful. These rays shoot out across light years of space. If they were to hit Earth or come close, well, our ozone would be toast. We would be engulfed in chemical smog. No bouncing back from that ever. Number 3, antibiotic resistant. Shout out to my fellow hypochondriacs. This one is for you. Go eat some vitamins. These last couple years, obviously, we've seen the importance of medicine, I'd say, without getting too deep into it. Since penicillin was discovered in 1928, for example, we've been getting pretty good at this whole medicine thing, right? The common flu is, it's maintainable. But what happens when we enter this post-antibiotic area where these infections are getting stronger and adapt more and more to attack us? Well, according to the World Health Organization, the efficiency of the world's antibiotics are working less and less. Dr. David Weiss, director of the Antibiotic Research Center at Emory University, says that this will change life as we know it. Consider going back to an era where a minor accident like a scrape could lead to death. Awesome, that sounds great. I can't wait to trip over my Heelys and then instantly die. Sounds like a blast. Go team. Good game. Number 2, a nearby supernova. For this next one, we'll be looking at Beetlejuice. And no, I don't mean the wacky Michael Keaton character, although I'm pretty sure he could take us out if he wanted to. We'll leave it at that. I'm talking about the red supergiant that began to dim in 2019. It lives in the constellation Orion, and this star is so massive that its decay is threatening us here on Earth. The last time we saw a star go supernova was the Kepler star in 1604. It was beautiful and big and bright for weeks, even during the daytime, but when Betelgeuse finally pops off, are we far enough to be okay? Do we need to wear Oakley sunglasses for 3 weeks? God, that would suck. Scientists agree that we need to be much closer for the radiation to cause harm, but with our previous knowledge of part 1, with all these wandering stars and planets just shooting out of orbit, who really knows? Number 1, phosphorus shortage. For hundreds of years, there's been a worry of not being able to feed Earth's ever-growing population. This problem really came into fruition in the late 20th century. The lack of nitrates and ammonia available to humans was getting pretty concerning, but luckily, German chemists Fritz Haber and Karl Bosch were able to come up with a process that takes gas from the air to turn it into fertilizer. That surely helped, but more problems were then on the rise. We began to realize our shortage of phosphorus. Our bodies need phosphorus for energy and to build DNA, so yeah, it's a tad important to us. We are about 30 to 40 years away, but the need for biofuel could push us even closer to the edge, making that number even smaller. That's tough because as important as biofuel is for all those reasons, it will now create this new phosphorus problem. Classic. Let's just go to Mars. I think that's the realistic solution here. Just pack up and jet out.
Number 10, we have the sun exploding. So guys, we just need to come to terms with the fact that one day the sun will explode. It's a star, it has a lifespan, it is inevitable. The good news is that we're probably a few million years off this happening just right now. Now the sun is made up of hydrogen, which will one day burn out, but before that happens, the sun will expand into a red giant. Now this may in fact burn up our planet, it will certainly change things for planet Earth. Our sun is roughly in the middle of its life cycle and is expected to get to red giant status in a few 100 million years, so no biggie. As crazy as it sounds, number 9 could be a more pressing issue. We have aliens. Okay, so this may well be the most ridiculous thing on the list, but if you think about it, it's not really that ridiculous after all. Almost all scientists believe that there is life out there. Now, whilst we are flourishing here on planet Earth, probability suggests that there is life out there, and who knows what level of technological advancement they could be at. Now, if other life forms are threatening, they could want to destroy planet Earth. Also, we don't know what status their planet's at, if it's kind of a dying planet, if their sun's exploding, expanding, they might be looking for another place to live, which means they could get rid of the whole human race. Now, whilst this does sound pretty elaborate, even Professor Stephen Hawking thinks this is a problem, he's a little bit worried about this, and Stephen Hawking is one of the greatest minds in the world. Getting slightly more plausible at number 8, we have the possibility of a solar flare. Now, solar flares have happened before. They are enormous magnetic outbursts from the sun that bombard the Earth with a torrent of high-speed subatomic particles. Now, these have happened before on a smaller scale. They can interrupt with telephone communications, they can raise the heat of the Earth, but if a really serious one happened, it could burn up the ozone layer and even fry planet Earth. It would be over for us. Staying intergalactic at number 7, we have black holes. Now guys, I hate to tell you this, but black holes are hanging out in our cosmic hood. Now, the most likely thing that would happen if a black hole entered our solar system would be planets would be torn from their orbits and smash into each other. Now, in the unlikely event that we missed out on all the planets smashing, asteroids would also be torn out of their orbit and pelt directly towards planet Earth. Boom. Now, if enough asteroids hit Earth, the whole kind of surface of the Earth could set fire. This would be a nightmare. But even if we avoided the planet smashing and the asteroids, if a black hole got close enough, Earth itself would be sucked in and we couldn't even deal with the density. Earth would literally implode or explode. We would die. Moving away from space and getting back down to planet Earth, at number 6, we have supervolcanoes. Now, you may not know this, but out here on planet Earth, we actually have volcanoes that, if they erupted, could destroy all humanity. One such massive volcano is the Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming, Montana, USA. Now, this measures 35 miles long and 45 miles wide. Now, this volcano erupts roughly every 600,000 years, and we are overdue an eruption now. Now, if the volcano did erupt, there would obviously be immediate complications with the lava that would knock out the surrounding area, so people kind of around there, they would die immediately. But also the volcanic ash would cloud the Earth, it would block out the sun, which could lead to a mini ice age. No one would survive. That's not the only supervolcano out there. There are in fact supervolcanoes in Italy, also in Canada, in Indonesia, in Japan, and in New Mexico. In at number 4 of our top 10 things that could destroy the Earth, we have a global pandemic. Now, a pandemic is an epidemic of infectious disease that spreads to a wide area. This could even spread to the surface of the Earth. Everyone on Earth could be infected with a disease in a worst-case pandemic scenario. Now, in the Middle Ages, the bubonic plague roughly wiped out 50% of all Europeans. And in more recent times, we have the onslaught of Ebola. If there were ever to be a zombie apocalypse, this would count as a pandemic. Luckily, in today's modern age and modern technology and modern science, it's kind of unlikely. In at number 3, we have the burning of the ozone layer. Now, the ozone layer is pretty freaking important. It protects us from UV rays. Now, if we're exposed directly to these rays, we can get cancer. In fact, it's very likely that we would. Luckily, we have the ozone layer at the moment to filter this out. However, if it was burned up, we wouldn't have it. It could be a disaster. UV rays can also stunt the growth and photosynthesis of a variety of crops and can also affect reproductivity in the aquatic life. So there is the possibility of humans destroying the ozone layer and also a possibility of solar flares destroying it, which would end the Earth as we know it. Getting very close here, in at number 2 of the top 10 things that could destroy the Earth, we have getting hit by an asteroid. Now, I've tried to order this list from a scale of unlikely to more likely, and getting hit by an asteroid is actually, I hate to say, pretty likely. However, the scale and size totally depends. We'll probably be okay. So we all know of one scenario where an asteroid irrevocably changed the face of the Earth, and that is when an asteroid the size of the Isle of Wight hit Mexico 65 million years ago. Now, this asteroid absolutely totally wiped out the dinosaur population. Dinosaurs had been wandering the Earth for 160 million years before that, and they could not survive this. If it happened before, it could happen again. The entire human race could be wiped out, and if the asteroid was big enough, it could knock Earth out of its orbit, although this is very unlikely. Also, in the age that we're living in, we have developed systems that can blast asteroids up so they become smaller, so we probably don't need to worry about this. Probably. Coming in at number 10, we have gamma ray bursts. Gamma ray bursts are way more worrying than solar flares. They're one of the brightest and most powerful events in the universe and have the ability to destroy anything in their path. They have been observed in distant galaxies, but not yet in our own. Gamma ray bursts come from the collapse of stars, usually during a supernova or a hypernova. It has been predicted that a gamma ray burst in the Milky Way, our galaxy, would cause mass extinction, if not total obliteration of the Earth. Cheery! Coming in at number 9, we have toxic pollution. So I don't know whether this could totally destroy planet Earth, but toxic waste could definitely destroy its inhabitants. In most major cities, the air is thick with carcinogens that come from gasoline used in vehicles. Pollutants from farming to feed our huge populations affect wildlife and contaminate water sources. Industry pumps metals into the air, which can be detected falling in the snows of Antarctica. And this is just day to day. Of course, there are always accidents like exploding nuclear power plants. With industry constantly rising, with oil constantly being excavated and burned, how long until we choke our planet to death or poison ourselves into sickness? And it's not just on land pollution that's a concern either. We genuinely have to worry about intergalactic contamination these days. This is coming into number 8. NASA employs full-time galaxy defenders, and keeping the Earth safe from cosmic contamination is one of their duties. In our modern age of space travel and adventure, more than ever, equipment and astronauts are setting foot in new realms. We have no idea how particles or matter from these realms would affect Earth if they were introduced. In the past, traveling from one country to another has had huge effects. For example, almost the entire wine production of Europe was halted at one point when phylloxera was introduced from North America by accident. We don't want to accidentally bring something home that disrupts the order of things, possibly to a catastrophic effect. Coming into number 7, we have the collapse of ecosystems. So when you were little, did you ever ask your parents or teachers why we couldn't just kill all the wasps or the spiders? It seemed perfectly reasonable because they're pests and you couldn't see a reason for them in life. Then of course the older and wiser person would say, well, you know, who would trap and eat the flies, and what would the birds or frogs eat? Without spiders, we would be overrun by flies and birds and frogs would suffer. Everything at the moment is linked in an ecosystem, and our existence depends on a fine balance of other existences. Despite knowing that, humans are cutting down forests left, right and centre to make more space for our growing population. Reportedly, around 30,000 species are vanishing every year because of our effect on our environment, meaning we are causing mass extinctions. Who knows when we will kill off something that we really need and what effects that will have on the food chain. Coming into number 6, we have global warming. So you can argue about the cause of it all you want, but the weather on planet Earth is fluctuating and it is more unstable than we have ever known it throughout the period of human history. We are currently breaking heat records year on end. Arctic ice is disappearing, glaciers are melting, as is mountain snow. The rise in sea levels could drown several of our cities. Some people even predict that new bodies of water could disturb currents in the Atlantic Ocean, which could paradoxically trigger an ice age. Coming into number 5, we have rogue planet collision. Uh-oh, it's a rogue planet, they've gone rogue. So these actually do sound way more fun than they are. Rogue planets are planets that don't orbit stars. Some simulations suggest that there may be more rogue planets than stars in the Milky Way at around 100,000 to 1. So really, we could be in one giant game of dodgeball. Our planet actually may have formed from a collision of planets, so it does happen. In 2012, some scientists predicted that a rogue planet could be just 100 light years away. Sure, we can blast asteroids, but how do you deal with a whole planet coming at you? Coming into number 4, we have Earth's core cooling. So right now, Earth's core is hot, hot, hot. And to cut something really long and complicated down into a paragraph in a top 10 list, we need it to stay that way. The swirling of liquid iron and nickel in the outer core swirling around the solid metal of the inner core creates magnetic fields which deflect solar flares and more. If the core cools, not only would we ourselves lose heat, but we would lose our magnetosphere, which would shoot our Earth's atmosphere into space, leaving us vulnerable to all kinds of crazy solar activity. You know Mars, icy Mars. Many speculate that a cool core is what caused this planet to die out billions of years ago. There's really not much going on there now. No immediate worries though, our core isn't set to cool for tens of billions of years. One more immediate worry though is that humans are currently trying to dig a hole to the mantle of the Earth which protects the core. While I'm sure we really couldn't prod hard enough, some are not sure that poking the mantle is a good idea. I guess we'll see. Coming into number 3, I don't think this is very probable, but we have robots. Robots! Many people fear that robots will take over the world, but I'm not particularly afraid of them destroying it. Humans have yet to evolve to something beyond our current state, but when you think about it, our next stage of evolution could be computers or robots, which are often more durable than we are. In some crazy dystopian future, robots could become top of the food chain. However, they would likely know how to look after planet Earth better than we do. Coming into number 2, we have divine intervention. I personally am pretty skeptical about this one, but any good skeptic should also be skeptical of their own beliefs and acknowledge that anything could happen to change their mind at any time. For some religious people, this may seem like a distinct possibility. For the agnostic among us, we also have to admit that we do not know how the world was created, therefore there are mysteries to the universe that we do not yet understand. If God created the world and stars, could God not very well destroy them? If the world started with a big bang, could it end with one? Finally, for me, I think the most likely way that our world will end on this list is our number 1, which is egos. War comes from a clash of egos. Failing to acknowledge global warming comes from an egotistical view. Oil is money, so those with huge egos want to burn it, so long as it lines their pockets, eh? Egos are the enemy of science and prevention. Egos are the enemy of learning. A person who cannot put aside their ego to accept new information that challenges what they may have previously believed is a very dangerous person indeed. Unfortunately, the world is filled with egos, and the biggest egos tend to run countries. Only by putting these egos aside and playing for Team Planet Earth rather than Team Individual Gain will we be able to come up and face the issues that are on this list. Fundamentally, if we can't put aside our egos, the world is literally doomed.
Starting off this countdown, we have Project Mercury and Volcano. This experiment makes you wonder, what on earth were they thinking? So from 1987 to 1992, the Russian military were running experiments for a tectonic weapon. Basically, the experiments would involve detonating nuclear weapons underground so that they would disturb the Earth's tectonic plates and electromagnetic fields, which they hoped would cause earthquakes and volcanoes. I don't know about you, but messing with the tectonic plates could have ended very badly. In the end, they only ran 4 experiments before it was banned. Like, dude, imagine they succeeded and created a bunch of earthquakes and messed up our electromagnetic fields. That would have been extremely disastrous. Coming in at number 9, we have weaponizing the plague. In 14th century Europe, the plague took the lives of up to 60% of the population. And the government was all like, let's use these victims for biological attacks. It started with gathering the deceased and flinging the infected corpses or their feces over castle walls using a catapult. From there, the military was making plans to load warheads with the bubonic plague, which would then be time released. Honestly, any form of biological warfare is a really bad idea. Seeing how fast the current pandemic spread, imagine people fighting with bacteria and germs. That would spread hella fast and kill millions. In our 8th spot, we have dimethylmercury. Dimethylmercury is a very dangerous and toxic chemical compound. So it's quite concerning when people start to experiment with it. Take the case with chemist Karen Wetterhahn, for example. In the late 90s, Karen was studying the effects that dimethylmercury had on living organisms. While running some tests, she dropped a bit of the chemical onto her glove. What she didn't know is that it can easily permeate through latex gloves within 15 seconds. And even a small drop is enough to cause mercury poisoning. Sadly, that's what happened, and she ended up slipping into a coma before passing away 10 months later. Although Karen's experiments weren't going to affect the world, any experiments with this compound should be feared. It could kill or sicken people within seconds. In our 7th spot, we have the Large Hadron Super Collider. With a name like that, it just sounds intimidating, like Super Collider. So this was the largest particle collider in the world. It was built between 1998 to 2008 and took 10,000 scientists and engineers from over 100 countries to build. It ended up costing more than $9 billion to make. Now you might be wondering, what does this massive machine do? Well, it, and I quote, allows the protons to produce the microscopic size of the black hole, but they evaporate because of their small size. Scientists were actually scared of the creation of this thing. They thought that this experiment could end the world. Like some thought it would create a big black hole that would just take in the Earth. Thankfully, it hasn't happened. yet, but it has been blamed for causing earthquakes and pulling asteroids towards Earth. In our 6th spot, we have Kola Super Deep Borehole. In 1970, the Soviets started drilling a hole into the crust of the Earth. They wanted to drill as deep as they possibly could. By 1994, they had made a hole 12 kilometers deep in the Kola Peninsula. But at that point, they had to stop. They couldn't go any further because it was getting extremely hot. Down there, it was 356 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. Now, this experiment brought up a lot of controversy. People were freaking out, thinking that the hole was going to release demons from the center of the Earth. Others feared that it would create earthquakes or stir up other natural disasters. Like seriously, we've never dug deep into our Earth's crust, so we don't know what could happen. Thankfully, the whole site has been closed. Now let's just focus on energy on productive things, okay? No more drilling. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Trinity test. In July of 1945, America detonated its very first nuclear device. This was given the name the Trinity test. This all happened during World War II when countries were madly rushing to gain military advantage. The Manhattan Project, which was a code name, oversaw the development of the atomic weapons during this time. The first test was on July 16th. They detonated the weapon in a New Mexico desert. Apparently, the bomb exploded with power equivalent to around 21,000 tons of TNT. Hell, that could have gone extremely wrong. And there were a bunch of concerned individuals who were scared that the explosion would cause the end of the world or destroy all of New Mexico. Thankfully, that wasn't the case. Coming in at number 4, we have the infected mosquitoes. During the Cold War, the US military was testing biological warfare. In 1957, they used citizens in Georgia, Savannah, and Avon Park in Florida as their test subjects. Basically, they would infect mosquitoes with diseases and then release them to see how they would infect the citizens. Well, within a day, the mosquitoes had spread a distance of between 1 and 2 miles and had bitten hundreds of people. In the end, thousands suffered from yellow fever, typhoid, encephalitis, and respiratory problems. Even a number of women were giving birth to stillborn babies. These were all blamed on the mosquitoes. There even was a number of deaths during this experiment. In our 3rd spot, we have Unit 731. Unit 731 was a biological warfare unit during the Second Sino-Japanese War. Well, in 1936, a man named Shiro Ishii built a huge compound where he would perform a number of disturbing experiments, including cutting pregnant women open to study them. And they got pregnant in the first place by one of Ishii's men. Another experiment consisted of having someone's limbs amputated and then reattaching them to other parts of their bodies. Others had parts of their bodies frozen and then thawed so that he could study what would happen if you didn't treat gangrene. Trust me, it gets worse. Other prisoners were his test subjects for grenades and flamethrowers, or he would inject others with diseases to study their effects. He even would test diseases on people to see how they would be used for biological warfare. That one posed the most risk to all of humanity had he actually created biological weapons. The list of experiments run on people there goes on and on though, it's very disturbing. In our 2nd spot, we have the biological weapons attack. Back in the 1950s, the military sent a number of planes to spray bacteria and chemical powders all across the US and parts of Canada. Citizens saw that a bunch of low-flying planes were spraying something, so they began to worry. So the government lied and was like, oh, we're just testing ways to mask the cities in order to protect you, in case of attack. Lies. Now, one of the chemicals they used was zinc cadmium sulfide. It is highly toxic and can cause cancer. In 2012, sociology professor Lisa Martino-Taylor claimed that there was a spike in cancer rates that could be connected back to the chemicals, which she alleges were radioactive. And in our number 1 spot today, we have New Zealand tsunami bomb. Between 1944 to 1945, New Zealand was experimenting with the use of bombs to create artificial tsunamis. Right off the bat, sounds like a terrible idea. So they experimented with placing bombs so that when they went off, the explosive energy would affect the water and cause tsunamis or tidal waves. They called it Project Seal. It was a highly secretive operation that they hoped would destroy enemy coastal defenses and even cities. They actually did almost 4,000 test explosions before ceasing the experiment. Which is good, because had they succeeded and it became mainstream, imagine how deadly that would have been.
Number 10. In Doctor Who, Season 1, the Doctor takes Rose Tyler to see the destruction of the Earth in 5 billion years. However, researchers working with NASA think that the world will actually end in 1 billion years, so 4 billion years less. This will be due to our ever-expanding sun, which will burn off all of the oxygen on our planet, essentially turning into a little fireball before it's consumed. The sun will most likely expand into a red dwarf and literally eat us. Hopefully by then we will have expanded into the universe and inhabited other planets and, you know, like Firefly. It would be awesome if that was real. However, we might destroy ourselves before the sun even has a chance to. So although it is inevitable that the sun will eat us for lunch, what we are doing now might beat it to the punch if we don't do something about it. Number 9. Wandering black holes. Black holes that move? No thank you. They can stay right where they are, except for some of them can't. Scientists always suspected that black holes could travel, but they just haven't found one until March 2020, that is. Yay! Researchers at the Center of Astrophysics Harvard-Smithsonian finally found a concrete specimen. At the center of a galaxy 230 million light years away is a wandering black hole. It has a mass of 3 million times that of our sun, and it is moving at 110,000 miles per hour. Black holes, due to their sheer mass, are usually just too heavy to get any kind of traction. Imagine kicking a bowling ball versus a soccer ball. Bowling ball is the black hole. But scientists think that it may have gotten its start due to a collision, therefore meaning that it could be part of a pair. So where's the other one? Could it be heading straight for us, ready to suck future generations into oblivion? I guess we will never find out, but they will, so good luck guys. Number 8. Satellite Demolition Derby. I feel like we practically just started going to space. It's only been since the 60s, like 6 decades, like that's insane. Which is why this number blows my mind. In space right now, orbiting our planet are tens of thousands of pieces of space junk, even millions. There are 2,000 active satellites and 3,000 dead ones just like chilling up there. Now that may not sound like too much of a problem, but it really could be. If they started hitting each other, the results would be disastrous. NASA scientist Donald Kessler in the 1970s proposed that if there was too much space junk in orbit, that a chain reaction could occur. As the junk collides with each other, it could cause even more space junk, making Earth's orbit entirely unusable. As you can gather, this would potentially be catastrophic. For companies like SpaceX, who plan on launching 50,000 satellites for global internet coverage, more obstacle avoidance procedures need to be put in place before that happens. Otherwise, I don't know, I don't want to think about it. It could get really bad. Number 7. Aliens. The wonderful late Stephen Hawking proposed that aliens could be dangerous for us to interact with. If you haven't seen Into the Universe with Stephen Hawking, you should. It's great. I love it. I put it on in the background all the time. He states that not only do intelligent life forms definitely exist, just probability wise, he does warn that interacting with them could be really dangerous. Quote, "We only have to look at ourselves to see how intelligent life might develop into something we wouldn't want to meet." Unquote. First and foremost, if they actually made it here, then they have technology far beyond our understanding yet. That kind of technology would be pretty intimidating, and consider how well we humans have dealt with meeting new people in the past. Answer, not good. But who's to say these intelligent aliens might not also be looking to colonize and conquer? We could be to them what the Mayans were to Cortez. If it's the other way around and we end up seeking them out first, who's to say history wouldn't repeat itself? You know, especially if we're looking for a new place to live. Ugh. Number 6. Wandering stars. The entire universe is continuing to expand, so that means that everything is constantly moving and could eventually tear apart. But anyways, even our sun is moving. But in relation to us, it isn't moving. However, there are stars that do. They are called wandering stars, and there is one in the Milky Way. What makes this one so dangerous is that it could get so close to our sun that it disturbs the Oort cloud. This cloud at the edge of the solar system is composed of comets, which would come hurtling at us if something were to hit it. Therefore, not a pleasant thing to think about. As we will discuss later, asteroids will not be kind to Earth. Now imagine thousands all at once. Currently though, we are in a region of less dense interstellar gas. Additionally, the wind and solar magnetic field protect us from interacting with the stellar medium. We will probably move out of this in the next 20,000 to 50,000 years, meaning more dangers will come our way. So basically, our sun protects us until something messes with that. Hence, wandering stars are the worst. I won't be around to see that, hopefully not anyways, and you won't me either, but somebody will be, and I hope they don't get to see it either. Number 5, supernova. What is a supernova? Well, it's essentially when a star of immense size explodes. Is this potentially deadly? Absolutely. Our sun is expected to die eventually, but probably not for, a billion years as previously mentioned. But what will happen when it does? Well, the entire Earth would burn up essentially as previously mentioned. It would be 15 times hotter than the surface of the sun, but that's not going to happen for a while yet. However, if a supernova occurred some 30 light years away, this could have detrimental effects on Earth now. Possibly mass extinctions, destruction of the ozone layer, therefore leaving Earth vulnerable to solar rays, which would kill us all. The oxygen and nitrogen in the atmosphere could also ionize, meaning our atmosphere would turn into a kind of thick smog. Not a good time, and doesn't sound very good. I don't want to be there. Number 4, gamma ray bursts. Okay, so we just talked about how scary supernovas are. Well, get ready for gamma rays. It's a death ray from space. They are the most extreme explosions in the universe, like a supernova. It's crazy enough to think that our sun could explode within seconds, not anytime soon, but imagine a star several times the mass of ours collapsing into a black hole. This could turn into a gamma ray burst. Essentially, twin beams blast out light so bright that we can see them from Earth, even if they are billions of light years away. So it's like a black hole's in the center and 2 lasers. If you think that's crazy, check out this fact. A gamma ray burst can release more energy than the sun will emit in its entire lifetime. What does that mean? It means death for any planet, asteroid, or spaceman in its way. It's literally like the universe made a lightsaber. Some scientists think that these gamma rays are one of the reasons for the mass extinctions on Earth. Let's hope that's not the case in future. Number 3, solar flares. Okay, so even if you're someone who condemns cell phones and says that the internet is killing our brains, yada yada yada, much of your life still depends on technology. Many people worry that a killer solar flare could destroy our planet, but that's not actually possible. But what is possible is a complete and total blackout. While the heat of a flare can't make it to Earth, electromagnetic radiation and energetic particles can. They can and have messed with the upper atmosphere and disrupted signal transmissions. But that's tame compared to what else could happen. Should a coronal mass ejection, a CME, hit Earth, it's game over for Insta. I will never see you again. Bye bye YouTube. They propel electromagnetic fluctuations that could fry ground level power grids, causing a total worldwide blackout. The largest geomagnetic storm caused by this ever recorded was in 1859. Telegraph networks around the globe failed, operators were shocked, and telegraph paper caught on fire. If we have a storm anything close to that, it could be catastrophic. Number 2, an asteroid. Of course. Ever seen Deep Impact or Armageddon? I have seen both, each only once because they terrified me so much. All throughout our galaxy, throughout the universe, there are wandering massive rocks drifting through space. Some are as large as whole provinces, even countries. At this moment, there are currently 20,000 asteroids in our galaxy that could pose a threat. Now, I assume that scientists actually have a plan for if one starts barreling for us, but it would be incredibly hard to stop regardless. The White House Office of Science and Technology Policy released a report on June 20th in 2018 that detailed the steps NASA and FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, will take to prevent asteroids from striking Earth and prepare the US for the consequences of the event. Side note, I love how Canada always dies in every disaster movie ever. The day after tomorrow, nobody cares about them. We're probably fine though. Anyways, that was a side note, side tangent. Anyways, the US, they are planning ways on deflecting them, as well as developing technology that better predicts the probability that ones will hit. So, maybe we won't be able to stop them, but we'll know they're coming, so I guess we can say goodbye to our loved ones. And last but not least, interstellar clouds. Imagine one day looking up into the sky and not seeing any stars. or very few at least. Then another night you look into your telescope and you can no longer see Jupiter. The next morning there's a murky darkness over the sky. You realize that no, this isn't a sci-fi nightmare or an episode of Doctor Who. There's no one to save us. What I'm talking about is an interstellar dust cloud that is capable of destroying the Earth. But don't worry, as terrifying as that intro was, we probably won't be alive to see it. Maybe no one will be, who knows. This event will probably happen in a few millennia, but eventually Earth will come in contact with a cloud 1,000 times denser than space. Imagine going from swimming in a pool to swimming in a pile of jello. Yeah. Dust and gas will penetrate our atmosphere and eat away the oxygen. Our planet will then be left vulnerable to solar wind that will come in and tear apart the molecules of life. Something I'm glad I will not be there to see.